Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got 3 replays in the Mercenary Tier 8 Premium Medium Tank, the Reapers Scythe. Now if you do like the video, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe down below as it really does help out the channel. And yes, the Reapers Scythe. It is one of the Warhammer 40k collaboration vehicles here at Tier 8, and it is basically a 430U, but down at Tier 8 and having loads of stats adjusted for that. So the armour is less than a 430U, but it's still pretty good, but you can't rely on it quite as easily as you could if it was the Tier 10 version of the armour, right? Which I suppose is good, because then it's balanced for Tier 8. The gun hits for 440 on the standard, just like a 430U. And it's a little bit derpy here and there as well, which sounds like a 430U. It plays very, very similar to that, in the fact that you can side scrape with it, you can play that bit more aggressive medium tank role, which is what the 430U loves. Now, the specialty of the Reaper's Scythe is the fact that this gun is slightly different. Now, the one big problem with this tank is also something to do with the gun, and that is the penetration. The penetration is 212, and that's the best pen you'll get on this vehicle, which means that it really struggles in quite a few Tier 10 games. When the tanks are more heavily armoured, this vehicle will struggle to do damage, and that can be pain. I really do like the Reaper's Scythe, and it's one that I do enjoy playing, but it's one that I feel like a lot of people might not get on with just because the gun's that little bit derpy, and the penetration can be a real pain to get used to. It's one of those that you really have to play well to get the most out of it, or know what you're doing exactly, where you can pen things with 212 pen. It just takes a lot of knowledge to play it to get the best out of it. You can still play it fairly aggressively because the upper plate does bounce a good amount, unless you're facing some of the Tier 9s and 10s that fire premium, and even then some of their standard rounds as well. The turret front can also bounce you a good amount, unless someone's firing premium and they decide to go through the turret front right next to the gun. That can be annoying, but again, it's mostly Tier 9 and 10s that do that. But it can side scrape really, really well. And the mobility is alright as well. It's fairly average for a medium tank. It's just the real letdown is the penetration on that standard AP round. But the thing is, this tank also gets a Hesh round, which is 165mm of penetration. And it hits for 530 alpha. Or you can load the 68 pen HE round, which has 630 alpha. Now that means that the 630 alpha HE shell is very, very good against artillery. You'll do mad damage to the artillery with those HE rounds, which is beautiful. But those Hesh rounds are really good against Tier 6, 7, and 8s. They're really nice. Again, you really have to know what you're doing with those Hesh rounds to get the most out of it, which is why I say this tank is one of those that relies heavily on your knowledge of the game and how you're going to get the most out of this gun, because it is one of those tanks that's really nice to play, but is really let down by the penetration on the gun that just means that you struggle in a lot of games because of the armour, right? Which can be pretty frustrating when you do play it. But it is one of the cheaper Warhammer vehicles, which is good for it, as it is a Tier 8, compared to the stuff like the Nemesis or the Lehman Russ or the Teeth Breaker. This tank for 6,900 gold isn't too bad, and it can be quite a bit of fun. If this tank is a bit of you, then, you know, it's one of those things. 6,900 gold isn't too bad. So, with the Reaper's Scythe, the vehicle does have a 48 km/h top speed, an 18 km/h reverse speed, 14.29 horsepower per ton ratio with the 10% internal fire chance, which means this tank shouldn't, realistically, get set on fire that often. It does like getting set on fire, just like its Soviet compatriot at Tier 10, the 430U, if you get shot through the lower plate, but generally, with that 10% internal fire chances, it is on the lower end of fire chances. The 48 km/h top speed is fairly average for a medium tank, and with a 14.29 horsepower per ton ratio, you do get to 48 km/h top speed. You're just a little bit sluggish at times, depending on what kind of terrain you're going on, so like hills and stuff. An 18 km/h reverse speed is also fantastic, by the way. That is great. You've got 38 degrees a second on the hull rotation speed, which means it does turn pretty decently quickly as well on its tracks. 1.66 on soft, 1.01 on medium, and 0.92 on firm terrains. Means the terrain resistance doesn't hold the tank back whatsoever, so it doesn't feel that sluggish because of that terrain resistance. You've got 303 meters of still concealment, with 314 meters of on-the-move concealment, which is pretty damn nice, and that's with the camouflage skill and the silent driving skill, getting that camo down to a good level, and that camo can be really good for the Reaper Scythe. If you want to, you could make that even better by running a camo net, and if you were to decide to run the camo net, you would actually end up getting your camo down to 264 meters of still concealment, which is really, really good, and would be absolutely filthy for the tank. The downside is that you make the gun worse, and the gun is not that great if you don't help it. So I run the gun stabilizer because the gun annoys me a lot. So I want to be able to make this gun as good as possible so the aim circle doesn't bloom out too badly. You got 473 meters of view range, which means you've not got the best view range in the universe for a tier 8 medium tank. It's something that is a little bit of a letdown for the Reapers Scythe, is that 473 meters of view range, as a lot of tier 8 meds are starting to get that more around 486 meters of view range when you kit them out fully. So 473 is still not horrendous, but it just means that it's not quite as good as a lot of other tier 8 medium tanks. You got 39.1 degrees a second on the turret traverse, so the tracks do turn slower than the turret traverse, which is nice for the Reaper's Scythe. You've got 0.7 accuracy during rotation, which is neither good nor bad. It's one of those that sits in that position where you go, that's alright. With a 2.41 accuracy during movement. Now that is bad, and that's bad because we've helped it as much as we can with the gun stabilizer and all 3 gun perks, which means that that is pretty poor, to be fair, at 2.41. It means that as soon as you move the tank, the aim circle does become quite large. But you do have a 2.12 second aim time, which means it doesn't aim in. It doesn't take too long to aim in. It's just one of those things that you do notice the gun bloom on this vehicle. You got 5 degrees of gun depression, which, to be fair, is very Soviet, as it is the 430U, but down at tier 8 in that regard. So you will have that 5 degrees of gun depression problem that you are really limited depending on the ridgeline. As you've seen in this game here on Prokhorovka, it can be very, very awkward to be able to use any sort of position where you have a ridge that goes, yes, you can't use your gun here. And it can be pretty frustrating to use that. You've really got to know the positions you want to take with your Soviet vehicles to be able to get the most out of 5 degrees of gun depression. You got a 10.5 second reload on this vehicle, which is 2.5k DPM, which is not too bad, with a 212mm of penetration on the standard AP, 165mm of penetration on the premium Hesh round, and a 68mm of penetration on the standard HE round, for 440 alpha, 530 alpha, and then 630 alpha, respectively. 870 meters a second shell velocity on all 3 rounds means that the shell velocity is below average, and you really do have to give a good amount of lead to hit your shots in this vehicle, so be careful of that in the Reaper Scythe, that you do need to make sure that you're given a good amount of lead at distance to be able to hit your targets, and especially with the gun being that little bit derpy at times, it means that you've got to expect that firing at good range, you're not as likely to hit shots as you might be in some other medium tanks. But then you've got 440 alpha at tier 8 and 530 if the Hesh works, which is absolutely fabulous. So trade-offs, right? And then in terms of a silver earn rate, because it is a tier 8 premium, it does make a silver bonus. It has a 150% silver bonus, so it is on the lower end of silver bonuses for tier 8 vehicles. So it doesn't make quite as good silver, but it still does make good silver because it hits hard, and depending on how much Hesh you fire, you still end up making a decent amount of silver because you've only got one round really that is going to pen most vehicles, and that's the 212 pen AP round, as the Hesh round really is a special case round that you have to load for the right targets. So you saw with that first game we finished with 3.3k damage, a wee bit of assistance there on Prokhorovka. It's a fairly average game for the Reaper Scythe, and it just showed the awkwardness you can have with Soviet-esque vehicles on a map like Prok, where there is a lot of ridge lines and tanks that have good gun depression tend to be king. But we still made a decent effort of it, and we came out with what was a decent result. So what do I run in terms of a crew and equipment to get all those statistics that I've just lined out for you on the old Reaper's Scythe? Well, I run a pretty typical medium tank crew for a tier 8, and that is Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Camouflage Expertise, Silent Driving, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, with the Advanced Loader, the Gun Stabilizer, and Optics. Optics will be able to get the 473 meters of view range, because you are pretty blind if you do not run the Optics to be able to get that kind of view range. You've got the gun stabilizer to get that accuracy during rotation and movement down as low as possible, because we want to keep that aim circle bloomed in so it doesn't take as long to get the shots fully aimed in for it. The advanced loader to get the best out of the DPM on this vehicle. All 3 gun perks to go along with that gun stabilizer to make sure that this derpy gun isn't quite as derpy, with the camouflage expertise and silent driving to get the best out of the camo, as the camo can be pretty damn useful at times, as you might see in the next replay. Now, if you did want to set up for the camo, you could, like I say, drop the gun stabilizer and then run the camo net, and you'd get that 264 meters of still concealment instead, which would be absolutely fantastic. But you'd be upping your accuracy during movement to 3.01 and your accuracy during rotation to 0.88, which would make your gun way derpier. Now, if you can live with it and can live with the aim circle becoming that much larger and the fact that you've got to aim for that little bit longer, then it's completely down to you and how you want to set up the vehicle again. There's no real right or wrong way. You can set up the tank how it seems perfect for you to be able to play it. If you feel like the camo will benefit you better, run that. If you feel like you really need to help the gun handling because it really frustrates you, run all the gun perks and the gun stabilizer, right? But I run the gun stabilizer because the gun absolutely irks me if I don't, and even then, it still likes missing shots, so it's a frustration you've got to be able to put up with. And it's one of the real downsides for the Reapers Scythe, really, is the fact that the gun is just that little bit derpy. Everything about the tank is quite nice, except for the fact that you've got that lower penetration at 212, and the gun can be a little bit derpy at times, which means that when you have to really hit those shots to be able to hit the right weak spot to be able to pen, it can just go, ha, lol, miss. And you go, right, thanks, Reapers Scythe. Great, that's good of you. So we're on to the second game here, and it's a tier 10 game here on Fjords. We've been half-healthed by a Chaug, and that Chaug could kill me in one more shot, which is why we're being extremely careful. We put a shot through the lower plate there of the SU-101, putting us up to 2.5k damage, and, you know, because we're on that position now where we can be one-shot by the Chaug, because he can just two-shot us, we have to be extremely careful. We have to wait for him to fire, we have to use our tier 9 and 10 vehicles that are heavy tanks that can bounce him, if they wanted to do it properly. We have to use those guys to be able to basically be able to support the tanks, right? And that's what we'd put in. We're in a tier 10 game. We have to support our higher tier vehicles. There's no point sitting at the back going, I'm in tier 8 in a tier 10 game. I'm just useless. Because we're not useless. We have a 440 alpha. We have a gun that can go through things. We've already shown that. We're at 2.5k damage. We've got to keep ourselves active to help the team win this game, as you always want to do. But you have to be careful about it, and that is exactly what we're doing. Sadly, the Valor just drove around the corner and got finished off by the IS-32. So, you know what? If the IS-32's finished this guy off, we have to use what's with us, and that's it. We're going to try and use this Valor's wreck to keep ourselves covered from the Chaug. But the Chaug starts getting shot in the side, so we're going to use the distraction that's been caused to shoot him in the back of the turret and finish him off. We see the Ruthless at the back of the map there, so I was just seeing if I could get a shot into him, but he's dropped low, waiting to get unspotted before we make the more aggressive push down the 7 line, because I am fully expecting more people to be along that 9 line, and in fact, there it is, there's a Grill 15, put a shot straight through his track there, which tracks and pins him in place. I was kind of hoping for a bit more assistance there as he was tracked up on top of the ridgeline, but it doesn't quite come out that way. We're up to 3.2k damage with 342 assistance, and there's only 3 tanks left, 2 TDs and an artillery, so we're just using the foliage here to our advantage to stay unspotted while shooting at this Ruthless, and as you can see, we're 230 metres away from this Ruthless, something like that, 240 metres away. We'll see when we actually get a clear shot at him. We were 220 metres away from him. We were using the bushes, that Ruthless could not see us while we were using the concealment, but as soon as we pushed out of the concealment, he did see us. That's what the spotting mechanics are like. If you use bushes and bush cover, then you're going to maximise your camo, you'll stay unspotted for longer, it's exactly what you want to be doing. And because the camo is so nice here on the Reaper's Scythe, you can abuse that to your advantage too. And we finished that second game there in the tier 10 lobby with the epic victory. 2 kills, 4,065 damage, the 1810 base XP with the 401 assistance damage. First class, the sniper medal. And generally a really nice game for the platoon in general there for a tier 8s in a tier 10 game. And it was nice for us as well because it's one of those things, when you have that kind of game at the start that happened, where we got a shot into the Bulldog, went, oh, I wonder what's around this corner, ouch! There goes half of my hit points, or there goes pretty much all of my hit points, right? And we're now a one-shot for a lot of the vehicles that are around the corner, and we've only done 1 shot of damage. It's quite nice to be able to push out 4K and have that nice game, even though we were in that position basically right from the get-go. So we're on to the third and final replay. And yeah, we're going to have a good time. This replay is one of those that we have a good time. And we're here on El Alamein. So the first 2 replays were what can be like in a tier 10 game. It shows you you're not useless in a tier 10 game. You want to be able to support your team, and you can support your team. You just got to really know what you're shooting, really know what you're going to be doing with your positioning to get the most out of this vehicle, as it is one of those tanks that you really do. It's not easy mode. It's a tank that you have to know what you're doing because of the weaknesses in the penetration, the derpier gun handling, and that little bit less in the armour. So you've got to know what positions you want to take, know where and when you can pen people with the AP, and then if you've got the chance to use the Hesh rounds, use the Hesh rounds, because they can be beautiful. They really can. When you up it to 530 alpha or even 680 when you're shooting the artillery and stuff with the 68mm of penetration on that HE, it can be lovely. But again, you've got to know what you're shooting at. So we're on this third replay here on El Alamein. We've come to the position here at F5, and our camo is really going to help us in this spot. Sadly, our shot dropped a little bit low when we shot at the T95E6, so we didn't get that early pen on that tier 10 American medium tank, which was kind of sad, but to be honest, that's the gun. We see the Minotaur crossing the gap, and I'm like, hello, Mr. Minotaur, let me shoot you towards the back end. And that's exactly why, because we set him on fire. Minotaurs, just like KV5s, if you shoot them in that back end and you've got the higher module damage that you generally have on the higher alpha guns, you're most likely going to be setting them on fire, and it's what we did. We managed to get another shot into the side of that guy as he was crossing as well, and we're up to 1018 damage. I'm keeping an eye on this M48A5 pattern, try and get a shot into the side of his turret, but we ricochet off the side of his turret because the shell just went to the back of his turret and ended up missing. We actually outspot the Scorpion G here, and the Scorpion G did not see us. We fire at that Scorpion G, track and pen him. He didn't see us. He's 360 meters away, and that makes me think that Scorpion G hasn't taken anything like optics or situational awareness, and that's one of those reasons why you really always, especially in World War II, you always should take things to help your view range, because getting outspotted can be an absolute pain, and even if you are going to get outspotted anyway, the moment something fires at you like I just did to that Scorpion G, you'll still spot them, and that means that you can spot them and shoot them back. That guy clearly hadn't set up anything for his view range, therefore his tank, having not the best view range in the universe anyway, couldn't see me. I managed to fire at him, stay unspotted, and that meant that I could advance and do other stuff that the team weren't expecting me to do. And that is push up into this position here at F6. Now, we are a little bit aggressive here in this tier 10 game again, but we've got camo, and our camo is going to do as well. This Ferdinand, again, can't see us. He's being a little bit cheeky. He's like, go on, do it, shoot me. I'm just like, no, Mr. Ferdinand, I do not want your sauerkraut, okay? I'm just going to sit here and wait for the moment that you decide to overexpose. In fact, there's an M5355. So we'll take the opportunity to just put a shot into the side of that guy, because you always like shooting the piggy. And that Ferdinand is still teasing us. He's sitting there going, go on, you want to do it, I know you do. But because we were not in a position to be able to get a good shot at him, I decided, okay, you know what, I'm just not going to bother. I'm just going to sit and wait. Patience is key. But as soon as we got unspotted and he got unspotted, I decided, okay, maybe he's going to poke up on the ridgeline while he's unspotted and I'll get a free shot of damage. But, well, we either bounced or we missed, I'm not sure. So we're going to poke up back on top of this ridgeline while we're unspotted. My food's about to come back. I'm assuming the Ferdinand is up, and there he is. That extra bit of view range from the food boost is enough to spot him, and that's how key that extra 10, 15 meters can be. We ricochet off his lower plate. He snaps us. That's why I waited as well. That's really awkward that that happened. We went for that shot into his lower plate. We somehow ricocheted off that lower plate, and he snapped the shot in with his 128mm gun, taking a decent chunk of our hit points away. I was waiting for him to pull back beyond the ridgeline so that he upped his lower plate at me, which made it easier for me to be able to pen that lower plate, and then it'll make it difficult for him to actually get back over and get a shot into us. But naturally, it just didn't go the way I wanted it to. We ricochet off his lower plate. He snaps a shot into us. We lose near 500 hit points. He loses nothing. Pain. But he gets shut down by the 780. Oh, the gun handling of the Reapers Scythe letting us down there as we had the full side of the WZ-111 GFT. And it went straight over the superstructure, which meant we missed that tier 9 tank destroyer's side profile, which is, yeah, sad times, but there we go. We'll try and snap a shot into the Minotaur's droid there as he was pulling over, but when we hit the turret front, and to be honest, it was one of those shots that was never really going to hit because he was pulling back beyond the ridgeline and he was nearly back covered with that droid, so we were never going to hit it. And 212 Pen is also going to struggle against the droid of a Minotaur too, so you've got to be careful of that. We get a shot into the upper hull there of the Earthshaker. Pretty fortunate pen, if we're honest, in the fact that we actually had to get lucky in the RNG of the shot, and that RNG being that we actually missed and the shot went low, and the shot did go low, and so we penned it. We get a shot into the ball sig, put another shot on the move in, but sadly we ended up missing. I was hoping to get another shot into that guy, but I was also hoping that he'd pull back so he couldn't shoot me. But I'd actually broke his engine with the first shot, so he stayed there. But he missed us, we missed him, and so we managed to survive for another day. We get the shot into, finish the T95E6 into that cupola. The Earthshaker puts a shot into my side there. We have to overexpose our side to be able to get a shot into him, naturally only having 5 degrees of gun depression. But we've put him down to a one-shot now. We're going to see if we can get a shot into his upper hull. And there we go. The shot flies straight through into that upper hull. A very, very tight shot there, realistically. But we'll take it, you know. We'll take the rough with the smooth. This gun can be extremely derpy. So when RNG decides, yes, you're going to hit that shot, we'll take it, okay? We'll take it. So with only 4 tanks left on the enemy team, we are still in a pretty close battle as it is 6-4. The Minotaur crosses the gap along the 2 line. I can't quite get a shot into him as he makes that cross. I know where the WZ is, and in fact that guy clearly has not set up for camo because we managed to outspot him by quite a margin. The medium tank in the Draugen gets spotted down at K7. So we know where he is. The Minotaur ends up killing the TVP. And now he's got a WZ-113 GFT problem. So I'm looking at that Minotaur going, he's mincemeat. He's going to die. But he bounces the WZ-113 GFT, which I was pretty surprised about at the time because I fully expected the Minotaur to just go boom when the WZ-113 GFT unleashed its 290 penetration on that guy. And then I'm sitting there watching it going, is he going to die? Am I going to need to come and help here? He's still alive. I've managed to nearly reload in the time here. I thought that WZ-113 GFT should have reloaded by now. But you know what? I'm just going to ignore it. Because the Minotaur still has to put 2 shots into that WZ-113 GFT to be able to even do the kill on him. So I was pretty confident that the WZ-113 GFT to kill him anyway. So we've loaded the Hesh. We really should load the normal HE round here to have that 630 Alpha. We're just making a mistake here in terms of not loading that HE round. But we know where the artillery is. So we're going to go hit him with that 530 Alpha straight through for 531. Meaning he's now a one-shot for my AP. So we definitely made a mistake there. We should have loaded the 68 penetration HE rounds. I'm not quite sure why I didn't. But there we go. Now we've got the AP round in, it's time to get rid of this piggy. Come here, we want our bacon. We wanted our bacon. And RNG said no. We hit that tight shot on the Earthshaker, right? And then the full side of M355, the shot goes low and does track damage only. That's RNG. That's RNG. But we do end up getting our bacon in the end, which is always great. And there's only 2 vehicles left. It's the WZ-111 GFT and also the Draugen as well. And we know exactly where those 2 guys are because they were both spotted over at K67. And in fact, we actually ended up spotting that WZ-111 GFT as well. So we go for the shot into his side and gun. The gun missed. Again, it did its thing. This is kind of where I wish I had Hesh loaded, though, because we could have hit him a lot harder. But we hit him for 456. Our 113 GFT ends up shutting him down, meaning there's only 1 tank left. It is Mr. Draugen. He was spotted down at K7, K8. So we're just going to have to go pressure him. Now, the Draugen is that little bit faster than us. And he also has a gun that fires Hesh. If he fires Hesh and hits us in the lower plate, he could actually kill us, which would be a pretty bad time for us here in the Reapers Scythe. But we just need to go and pressure where we think he is. So currently our TD is pushing down the K line. With the TD being where he is, that makes me think, okay, that Draugen is not there. So either the Draugen is going to have been pushing around towards our base where someone's pinged defend the base, or he's going to be camping in the position that I'd expect someone to be going from when they, when they were spotted earlier on, and that is the back position at J0 or G0, because they can hide behind that little ridge line, keep poking over with 10 degrees of gun depression or 8 degrees of gun depression, whatever it is on the Draugen, and then keep putting shots in. In fact, there's the Draugen. He gets spotted at the back. It's kind of where I was expecting him to be, because that's just where I'd have imagined anyone would have gone in the situation that he was in. So he manages to poke over the ridgeline and shut down our 704. He's pretty healthy, and that makes me a little bit scared. Not gonna lie, because I'm going to go in. Naturally, we're at 5.7k damage with 2.1k assistance. We're having an amazing game. I want to pressure this Draugen and get as much as possible. So I'm going to get as close to the ridgeline as possible, try and get under the gun line, but in fact, There's the Draugr. We hit him in the back with the Hesh round. It sets him on fire. We're going to angle so the front of our tank is pointing towards him. He misses his shot on the move. We aim that little bit higher so the Hesh avoids the tracks. And thankfully for me, it goes in, and that Hesh round manages to go in and finish off the Draugr. And we finish the game with the victory. 4 kills, 7,056 damage, 2.1k assistance, that's 9k combined. With the ace tanker, the Pascucci's, the high caliber, and that 2.7, nearly 2.8k base XP. An absolutely amazing game there for the Reapers Scythe in a tier 10 game on El Alamein. And I'd say it's a tank that's alright. It's a pretty nice tier 8 premium medium tank. It's just the fact that you have the problem that penetration on the gun is really not great, and it's something you really have to know what you're doing to get around that. And if you can, well, you can have a pretty damn good time. But I find it enjoyable. It's one of those, though, it might be a bit Marmite. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!